Let's jump right in with this quote. Like a surprise bite from a wasp, it comes to you unaware, but lasts a lifetime, like a sad memory branded on the brain. Wow. The author of the text we're looking at today uses this incredibly visceral metaphor to describe the absolute pain of discrimination. It's a powerful opening, right? It immediately grounds us in the raw emotional reality of social exclusion. You see, it's not just some abstract academic concept. To them, it's a sudden, sharp sting that literally leaves a lasting mark.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to be unpacking a deeply personal text titled Drowning Stillness. It's really a profound case study in resilience, tracking the author's lifelong journey through systemic discrimination. We're going to explore the incredible emotional regulation and the psychological strategies they built up to basically maintain their self-worth against all odds. It's fascinating stuff.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, the sting of discrimination. Then, surviving social exclusion. Facing public confrontations. Strategies for self-worth. And finally, growth through hardship. Just a quick heads up, this isn't just a story about suffering. It's actually a masterclass in building a psychological toolkit for survival.
All right, let's start with part 1, the sting of discrimination, a lifelong challenge.
So, from a really young age, the author describes feeling like, quote, a black spot on a clear face. And what they're describing here is basically a textbook case of navigating systemic discrimination. We're talking about pervasive, repeated exposure to hostility, public shaming, and social exclusion entirely based on identity. For the author, this created this deep, rocking fear of being publicly shamed and belittled by their peers. It's a massive psychological weight, something they had to carry into literally every room they walked into. And looking at this timeline, you can really see why this was such a heavy burden. This exclusion wasn't just some one-off bad day. It was a continuous hurdle spanning their entire life. In childhood, they dealt with really difficult family dynamics. Then in primary and secondary school, they faced bullying over their grades, their height, their background, the whole shebang. At university, it was complex social betrayals, and eventually, in adulthood, it evolved into overt workplace hostility. The pattern here is just undeniable. Moving on to Section 2, Surviving Social Exclusion, the Crucible. Now, when we break down the specific environments where this intense exclusion happened, 3 main arenas emerge. First, the family environment. Here, the adversity looked like shouting and belittlement, specifically a father with a loud, thundering voice and a mother who used her kids as fallbacks while belittling them to other people. Second, the education environment, which involved tribal hostility and public shaming. The author talks about classmates mocking them, physical altercations, and even university lecturers actually admitting their hate for the author's tribe right there in the classroom. And third, the professional environment. The author faced explicitly exclusionary job interviews and severe workplace tension, where colleagues would openly express disgust at even having to work with them. So what's really crucial here is how the author categorized all this adversity. They literally took stock of their life and ranked the top 3 things they feared the most. Coming in at number 3, aggressive, mean, shouting men. Number 2, tribalism, violence, and abusive language based on race and tribe. And number 1, their absolute greatest fear, abusive and belittling women. This super specific ranking shows us just how deeply they analyzed the actual sources of their social pain.
Okay, Section 3, Facing Public Confrontations, External Chaos versus Internal Peace.
This brings us to the actual friction points. If we compare what was happening externally with the author's internal response, the contrast is honestly staggering. On the outside, the author was constantly bombarded by aggressive shouting, tribal hostility, and public belittlement. Think about that university contact who helped them, but then later publicly belittled them while a lecturer made political remarks. That is intense external chaos. Yet their internal response? It was to remain silent, recognize the behavioral patterns at play, and ultimately just let it go. They cultivated this profound internal stillness right in the middle of a roaring environment. And that actually leads us to one of the most vital concepts in the entire text, the tortoiseshell metaphor. The author writes, like a tortoise takes to its shell in times of uncertainty, so would I in times of standing up for myself. It's a brilliant self-defense mechanism when you think about it. Rather than engaging in the hostility or screaming back or escalating things, the author actively chose to withdraw inward. They protected their soft center by presenting this impenetrable shell to a completely hostile world. Let's dive into Section 4, Strategies for Self-Worth, the Mental Toolkit. Now, this mental toolkit was absolutely the key to their survival. The author effectively used this 4-step in-the-moment response strategy whenever public confrontations happened. Step 1,
notice the tension. They learn to basically read the room instantly. Step 2, retreat inward like a tortoise. Protect the ego. Step 3, refuse to react. There's this wild story in the text where the author is at a job interview, and right in front of them, one panelist tells the other they don't feel comfortable talking to, quote, those people. The author, they simply asked their one question, got barked at, and just walked out without reacting. And then step 4, internally forgive. They walked away from that interview completely unaffected, just knowing better things were coming. I just let it be and not get very close. I just let it go, and I moved on. This idea pops up in various forms all throughout the text, and I want to emphasize something really clearly here. For this author, radical internal forgiveness and simply walking away, those were not signs of weakness. No way. They were a highly calculated, powerful psychological strategy to protect their own peace. By refusing to hold on to that anger, they essentially denied their aggressors any lasting power over them.
Moving on to our final section. Section 5, Growth Through Hardship. The Wise Survivor. By the end of the text, it's just impossible to view the author as simply a victim. They offer these incredible, candid insights. They even admit to their own failures. Like after they finally achieved some financial stability, they actually texted that university contact who had belittled them earlier, specifically trying to hurt them back. But the author notes this as one of their greatest regrets. They realized that seeking revenge or trying to retaliate, it only deepened their own pain and trapped them in this tense, toxic triangle. Revenge offered absolutely no true healing. So let's quickly summarize the broader life philosophies the author adopted to really anchor their self-worth. First, fundamentally believe better opportunities are coming. That mindset saved them after those brutal job interviews. Second, accept the realities you simply cannot change, like a hostile stranger's glare. Third, completely separate yourself from tense, toxic triangles. And finally, quickly recognize behavioral patterns in others so you can safeguard yourself against them before the sting even happens. They anchor their worth in their own future, definitely not in the negative opinions of others. We've explored a pretty remarkable journey today of navigating deep, systemic social exclusion. The author took the sharp sting of discrimination and countered it with a profound, drowning stillness. So I want to leave you with this question. When faced with the drowning stillness of exclusion in your own life, will you react and engage in the chaos? Or will you use this toolkit to protect your peace? Take these strategies forward with you. Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer.